Hi, this is Sean with Handy by Design, and today we're going to talk about safety in your home. In the next 10 minutes, you're going to be an expert in smoke detectors. You'll know more than 99% of Americans. Um, Very important product in your home that keeps you and your family safe. We're going to talk about four things: the locations you're supposed to have your smoke detectors, the type of smoke detectors, the installation and testing of your smoke detectors, and your plan of action. Remembering with your plan of action, if it's not written down and practiced, it's not a plan. It might be a good idea, but it's not a plan. All right, smoke detector locations. Most house fires originate in the kitchen and the garage. Those two areas are the two most dangerous areas of your house um, as far as fires go. The requirement by code for smoke detectors is that there has to be a smoke detector at each level of your house. If you have a single-story house, that makes it easy. If you have a two-story house or a tri-level house, it gets a little more complicated, but there needs to be a smoke detector at every level of the house and in hallways leading to bedrooms and in every bedroom. And a bedroom by code is defined as that has a closet and access to a bathroom, direct access to a bathroom. Now, if somebody's sleeping in a room that is not defined as a bedroom but is a bedroom, you should have a smoke detector in there for safety, just for safety. So as far as locations, the other part of this is that smoke detectors have to be installed within 18 inches of the highest point of a ceiling. So if you have a vaulted ceiling, those smoke detectors have to be installed so that the smoke detector is within that 18 inches of the highest part of the ceiling. If it's a flat ceiling, then just an 8 or 9 foot ceiling, then it just has to be within 18 inches of the highest point of that ceiling. They can be installed on walls as long as they're within 18 inches of the highest point of the ceiling. They can be installed on the ceilings. They can be installed on beams or other things as long as they meet that requirement of within 18 inches of the highest point of the ceiling. And there's another little thing that says they cannot be within 36 inches of a register, like an air conditioning or heating register, or a ceiling fan, the blades of a ceiling fan. And the reason for that is if there's a fire in a room and you've got the air conditioning going and it's blowing fresh air onto the smoke detector won't get the signal that it needs that there's a fire in the room and won't be able to alert you that there's a fire in that room in a timely manner. And so you have to plan where those are going to go. And often people put location first where you can't see it, but that's not necessarily the best place. You need to make it so that the function is the number one priority on smoke detectors. Types of smoke detectors. There's really two brands that are really popular out here in the West anyway, and those are FireX and Kitty. Most of the smoke detectors we install are of those two brands. But the two types of smoke detectors that you can get are either AC, which is hardwired with a battery backup, or simply a battery-powered smoke detector. On an AC with battery backup, the house circuits, the same circuits that power your lights or your plugs, power the smoke detector. But it has a battery that's there to back it up just in case the power goes out. And often it's an electrical fire, which means the circuit breaker would trip or power might go out. And so you need those smoke detectors to have the battery backup. Often when you're retrofitting, because they're always adding more and more smoke detectors. In the old days, you only had to have one smoke detector in the house. They didn't care where it went. There had to be a smoke detector in the house. Then it went to each level. Then it went to hallways and bedrooms, and who knows, there's going to be more, I'm sure. But when they retrofit them, they usually just use a battery-style smoke detector. And that only runs on the battery and needs to be tested on a regular basis to make sure the battery's good. Those often are tested on the daylight savings day for the older brands, the older models, twice a year. Daylight savings in April and November, October, November. So that's a good time to test it. There's two systems that a smoke detector can be. They can either be interconnected, which means one smoke detector is tied to every other smoke detector in the house and when it goes off, it tells the other ones to go off as well, or when they go off, it is told to go off as well. So in that case, a smoke detector in a garage would tell everybody in the house that there's a fire in each of the bedrooms and the halls leading to the bedrooms and at every level would know. Whereas the ones that are isolated, that smoke detector in the garage might be down there buzzing, and because the garage door's closed, your bedroom's doors are closed, and say the other end of the house, you might be thinking to yourself as you're sleeping, wow, somebody's car alarm is going off. I wish they would turn that off, right? That is possible, but if they're interconnected, that 120 decibels going on in your room, there is no way to misunderstand that that is a smoke detector going off, and you should do something about it. Installation and testing. When we put smoke detector systems in new homes, we wire them this way. We use a 14-3 wire, which is a Romex wire that's got black, white, red, and a ground wire in the in the sheathing. And the reason we use that is the black and the white power the smoke detector, and the red is the signaling wire that connects between each of the smoke detectors, and that's the wire that carries the signal if one smoke detector is telling the rest of them to turn on. And because there's no metal components exposed on a smoke detector, they don't have to be grounded, and so there's no grounding connection on smoke detectors. They just connect together and push up in the back of the box, and so there's no grounding on those. When we install a smoke detector, we get a packet with every smoke detector, and that packet should be left for the homeowner, and it is the installation and testing information. And along with that is a small notepad kind of thing that has adhesive on one side that we stick in the electrical panels. That's where they're supposed to go. And it's got a little box for every month that you're supposed to test and check the smoke detectors. And how you're supposed to test them is you're supposed to actually stand on a ladder or whatever you need to get access to it, and push the test button and hold it until the alarm activates. And it should not only activate that smoke detector, but after two alarm sounds, it should activate the other smoke detectors as well. There's a problem when you do that. Of course, those smoke detectors are incredibly loud, and so with your other thumb, hold it over the little slots by the siren part of the smoke detector, and it'll make it so that it's not loud at all. That's the best way to do that. But that's supposed to be done monthly, and the notations for that are supposed to be made in the panel. And I've never heard of anybody having a problem with their insurance not wanting to pay for fire if they didn't test their smoke detectors like they're supposed to. But more important than that is your family safety, and so it's probably a good idea to do that, to follow the manufacturer's recommendations. If you have batteries, new California requirements, the batteries have to last for 10 years. And there's some good things and bad things about that. Before, in the old days, when your battery didn't last for 10 years, when it lasted for 2, for example, people knew that they had to stay on top of it and maintain their smoke detectors. And they would listen when the fire department would remind everybody on daylight savings to check their batteries and test their smoke detectors. But now, because of the 10-year rule, I haven't been hearing anything about testing your smoke detectors and checking your batteries. And the bad thing about that is that nobody's getting up and looking at their smoke detectors and kind of forgetting about them, and that's not always a good thing. The other thing that you should do when you test them monthly like you're supposed to is to take a can of compressed air that you clean your keyboards with and spray it into the smoke detector everywhere that you can. Don't overdo it, but just nice softly get rid of the dust that might collect up there, and it'll make your smoke detectors much better at doing their job if they're clean like they're supposed to be. And when you do that, you can see stuff flying out all over you. You'll know that it's important. All right, the alarm goes off. What do you do? Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. So we need to plan in advance and make sure we know what to do in advance. But this is what happens when the alarm goes off. The first thing to do is in 2 seconds, preferably you have a landline, 911 is all that you have to do. You don't even have to talk to anybody. Just set the receiver on the table, 911, the operator is going to hear the alarm going off, and the alarm for fire is different than the alarm for security. Of course, they will send somebody right away, and you can always tell them to not come. And that's how you handle that. If you only have a mobile phone, my mobile phone, I've got my 9 programmed as my 911, so I press and hold 9. It automatically connects. The difference is on a cell phone, when you call cell phone, it goes to Highway Patrol, not to the 911 operator. And Highway Patrol then has to transfer it to the 911 operator, and they have to ask you where you're at, or else they have to take a long time to look at the cell triangulation to figure out where you're at. So it's better to have a landline, call 911 on your landline, and get things started in case there's an actual emergency where you need help. All right. The second thing you do is test your door. You make sure there's not a fire right behind your door so that you don't get blasted by hot air and gases, heat and gases when you open that door. Then you wake everybody up and remind them of 2 things. Get your battle buddy and get outside. Those 2 things. Simple. Don't give them more instructions than that. And this is something that you should drill and test and know. Get your buddy, get outside. And then after you're outside and you can look at your house, you don't see any orange glow on the inside, sweep the house with a handheld fire smoke detector. And the reason that you'll need that is you may have a smoke detector that's giving you a false alarm, and that smoke detector is going to need to be replaced anyway. And so if you're going through the house and first checking to make sure there's no fire with a handheld smoke detector, that may be able to alert you better than your nose if there's actually smoke that you need to be aware of. And then, let's say that you've got 6 smoke detectors in your house. One by one, go and disconnect the smoke detectors, and they'll still be chirping at this, not chirping, they'll still be sounding at this point. And when you find the smoke detector that's giving you the alarm, the rest of them will be quiet. So take each of them down, set it right there where it was at so you know you can keep track of where they were, which ones were the ones, and then after you get them all to be quiet, the last one you pulled down before they went quiet was the offending smoke detector. And first you can try to clean it and stick it back up and see if it doesn't sound the alarm anymore, if it's an all clear. And if that doesn't work, then replace it with the one that you used to sweep the house. So there you go. That is all the information that you need to know about smoke detectors to keep you and your family safe. And a lot of people, when I walk in their house, they've got their smoke detectors, and their smoke detectors have been there so long that they aren't white anymore. They're actually almost a brown, like they're in a house that's got smoke in it or something. I mean, they're terrible. They actually turn really ugly brown. So if you look at your smoke detectors and they are anything but bright white, and if they are more than 2 years old, 3 years old at the most, they need to be replaced. And the new smoke detectors detect much better, and they don't have the false alarms that the old ones do. So it's often better to replace them with better smoke detectors. So you now are an expert in smoke detectors. I expect you to take action and make that information beneficial for you and your family. So this is Sean with Handy by Design, and now you know.